Welcome, my dear wizards and witches, to the heart of Gryffindor Tower, where bravery meets warmth and mischief finds its home. The common room, tucked away behind the enchanted portrait of the Fat Lady, glows with the golden light of a roaring fire. Its walls are adorned with rich red and gold, and the scent of parchment and warm cocoa lingers in the air. Here, the brave and daring have gathered for centuries, sharing laughter, whispers of adventure, and quiet moments of reflection. The cushioned armchairs and squishy sofas bear the stories of countless students who have called this place their sanctuary. Before we continue, I want you, dear listener, to comment down below where you're from and what time it currently is. Tonight, we invite you to settle into this world of magic and camaraderie as we uncover tales of Gryffindor's courage, curiosity, and the unique magic that makes this tower a place of endless wonder. Let the firelight guide your thoughts as we begin. Long before the Gryffindor common room became the warm and lively heart of its house, it was but a vision in the mind of Godric Gryffindor. One of the 4 founders of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Gryffindor was known for his valor, his boundless imagination, and his deep belief in fostering courage. When the founders gathered to create Hogwarts, it was Gryffindor who insisted that the school not only teach magic, but also nurture the daring and bold spirits that would one day shape the wizarding world. As the founders crafted their respective house traditions, Gryffindor sought a place that would reflect the values he held dear. He envisioned a lofty tower, high above the rest of the castle, where his students could gaze out over the Scottish Highlands. This perch, he believed, would inspire them to reach for greatness, while reminding them of the vast world beyond their walls. The tower would be their hearth, a space filled with light and warmth, where the fire in their hearts could flourish. The construction of Gryffindor Tower was a collaborative effort. While Rowena Ravenclaw's ingenuity ensured the tower's structural brilliance, it was Gryffindor's touch that gave it its soul. The warm hues of red and gold were chosen not only to reflect his personal heraldry, but also to evoke feelings of vitality and energy. Large windows were placed to let in natural light during the day and offer views of the night sky, encouraging students to dream beyond their immediate horizons. The central feature of the common room was, and remains, its magnificent fireplace. With its enchanted flames, the hearth was not merely a source of warmth, but also a symbol of unity and strength. Gryffindor enchanted the fire so that it would never burn out, always offering its glow to those who gathered around it. The Fat Lady's portrait, which guards the entrance, was another of Gryffindor's touches. A woman of great humor and resilience, she became a fitting sentinel for the room, her wit and determination echoing the values of the house. Only those who displayed resourcefulness, demonstrated through knowing the ever-changing password, could earn entry to the tower. Gryffindor also imbued the common room with subtle magical elements meant to inspire bravery. The very air of the tower seemed to encourage boldness, and students often found themselves standing taller, speaking with more confidence, and daring to attempt the extraordinary. Legend has it that the portraits and tapestries hung on the walls were enchanted to subtly influence those who lingered nearby. A tapestry of a lion in battle, for instance, was said to stir feelings of determination, while another, depicting a Gryffindor knight, urged students to hold their ground in the face of fear. The tower's placement at the castle's highest point was no accident. Gryffindor believed that bravery was linked to perspective, the ability to see beyond oneself and act for the greater good. The winding staircase that led to the tower served as a metaphorical journey. Each step upward was a reminder that courage often requires effort and perseverance. Over the centuries, Gryffindor Tower has stood as a testament to its founder's vision. While other houses have their own storied spaces, the common room of Gryffindor holds a particular energy, its walls resonating with the laughter, triumphs, and even the quiet contemplations of its students. It is a place of light and resilience, designed not just to house the bold, but to cultivate their potential. Though Gryffindor himself departed Hogwarts long before its halls were filled with students from every generation, his essence lingers in every detail of the tower. The embers in the fireplace seem to spark with his indomitable spirit, and the tower's lofty heights continue to inspire those who climb its stairs. It is said that Godric Gryffindor would often pause at the top of the tower, looking out over the vast hills and valleys below, and whisper to himself, "For the brave, the world is wide." And so Gryffindor Tower became more than a gathering place. It became a symbol of courage itself. While Gryffindor Tower stands as a testament to Godric Gryffindor's vision and enduring legacy, not all of its tales are rooted in triumph or bravery alone. Some stories, whispered over centuries, speak of the unexpected, moments when even the magic woven into the foundation of Hogwarts seemed to falter. Among these is the peculiar tale of the Sorting Hat's Rebellion, a rare and unsettling event that left even the bravest Gryffindors questioning the enchantments that shaped their world. The Sorting Hat, crafted from the combined magic of the four founders, was intended to embody their shared vision for the school. Godric Gryffindor provided his own hat, while all four founders imbued it with their essence, ensuring that it would faithfully carry out the task of sorting students into their houses for generations to come. The hat's enchantment was not merely functional, but deeply symbolic, a representation of the founders' unity despite their differences. For centuries, the Sorting Hat performed its duty with diligence, its decisions respected and its magic unquestioned. It became a fixture of Hogwarts life, integral to the start of every new school year. However, like any ancient magic, the hat held its own complexities, and deep within its seams were fragments of the personalities and wills of the founders. Over time, those remnants began to stir. The rebellion began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Students in the Gryffindor common room first noticed something peculiar about the Sorting Hat during a cool autumn evening. The hat, which normally rested atop a polished wooden stand in the headmaster's office, had always been regarded with reverence. However, tales began to circulate that it had grown restless, its voice heard only during the sorting ceremony, murmuring faintly even when not in use. By the time the news reached the common room, whispers of unease were spreading through the castle. Gryffindor students, known for their curiosity and boldness, speculated on the cause. Had the enchantment begun to unravel? Was the hat displeased with its task? Theories abounded, but no answers emerged. The rebellion reached its peak during the sorting ceremony of a new school year. As the sorting hat was placed upon the head of the first student, it remained silent for an unnaturally long time. Whispers rippled through the great hall, the enchanted ceiling above reflecting a turbulent sky. Then, without warning, the hat erupted into an impassioned monologue, its stitched brim twisting as it refused to sort another student. The hat, it seemed, had grown weary of division. It declared that the houses had strayed too far from the original vision of unity, and that the rivalries between them had become destructive. Its voice, both commanding and sorrowful, echoed through the hall, leaving students and staff alike in stunned silence. Back in the Gryffindor common room, the aftermath of the Hat's rebellion was a subject of intense discussion. The house, known for its daring and resourcefulness, approached the situation with characteristic resolve, while other houses reacted with confusion or frustration. Gryffindor sought to understand the Hat's grievances. Older students delved into the history of the school, unearthing ancient texts and legends to uncover the source of the Hat's dissatisfaction. Among them, they found references to the founders' original intentions, that the houses should coexist in harmony, their differences strengthening the whole rather than dividing it. The Gryffindor students came to understand that the Hat's rebellion was not an act of defiance for its own sake, but a call to restore balance and unity to Hogwarts. Their efforts, shared with the other houses, ultimately helped calm the Hat and restore its faith in its purpose. The Sorting Hat's rebellion left a lasting impression on Hogwarts, particularly among the Gryffindor students. It was a moment that called for courage, not in the form of grand heroics, but in the quieter bravery of self-reflection and change. The Gryffindors took pride in their role in addressing the Hat's concerns, proving once again that their house was not defined solely by daring, but also by its commitment to justice and leadership. The Sorting Hat eventually returned to its duties, though it retained a certain sharpness in its tone during subsequent ceremonies, to remind the students of its lesson. For the Gryffindors, the event became a cherished story, often shared by the firelight as a testament to their house's values. It was a reminder that bravery is not only found in battle, but also in confronting the truths that challenge comfort and tradition. As the Gryffindor common room settled into its familiar rhythm following the Sorting Hat's peculiar rebellion, life in the tower continued to reflect the lively spirit of its house. The winter months brought a particular magic to the common room, as snow blanketed the castle grounds and roaring flames cast flickering patterns across the red and gold walls. It was during these cold, dark evenings that an unofficial Gryffindor tradition came to life. The Firelight Duels were not formal competitions sanctioned by Hogwarts, but rather a pastime born of Gryffindor's boundless energy and love of challenge. It began innocently enough. Students practicing wand movements in the cozy glow of the common room's hearth, testing their skills on enchanted cushions or conjured sparks. Over time, these friendly trials of skill grew into a cherished custom, blending competition with camaraderie. The duels were more about showmanship than actual combat, often involving harmless yet dazzling displays of magic. A flick of a wand might conjure a burst of shimmering fireflies, while another spell would send enchanted feathers cascading gently through the air. Students competed not to overpower their peers, but to impress them, earning admiration for creativity, precision, and daring. Gryffindor Tower itself seemed to embrace the tradition. The enchanted hearth became a centerpiece of the activity, its ever-warm flames casting a golden light that made every spell sparkle just a little brighter. The room's high ceilings and sturdy furniture bore the occasional magical mishap without complaint, as wayward sparks or misdirected charms often ricocheted harmlessly off the walls. The fat lady, watching from her portrait outside, was said to grumble about the noise on particularly boisterous evenings, though she never intervened. The other portraits within the room occasionally cheered on the dueling students, their painted faces lighting up with amusement as the spectacle unfolded. Even the tapestries and rugs seemed to hum with approval, as though the very magic of the room delighted in the students' exuberance. The duels, while light-hearted, were not without their challenges. Participants often found themselves called upon to think quickly and adapt their spells on the fly, as the audience frequently suggested unexpected twists. Only levitation charms, they might demand, or make it look like fireworks. Gryffindor students, known for their boldness, relished these sudden constraints, finding innovative ways to dazzle their peers. Although the stakes were never more than pride and the occasional teasing remark, the Firelight Duels became a quiet proving ground. Younger students, hesitant at first, gained confidence as they participated, while older students offered guidance and encouragement. It was a reflection of Gryffindor's values: courage nurtured not in isolation, but within a community that celebrated each small victory. One particularly cold winter evening, as snowstorm winds howled outside the tower. The common room was alive with activity. The fire blazed brightly, illuminating the eager faces of students gathered to witness an impromptu duel. Two fourth years, known for their creative spellwork, had taken the makeshift stage. The room buzzed with excitement as the pair began their match. One conjured a swirling vortex of shimmering snowflakes, each one reflecting the firelight like tiny mirrors. In response, the other cast a spell that turned the snowflakes into glowing embers, which spiraled upward before vanishing into sparks. The crowd erupted into cheers and laughter, the energy of the moment infectious. For a time, the cold and darkness of winter seemed a distant memory. In the glow of the firelight, the students found warmth not only in the room, but in each other. Their shared laughter and enthusiasm filling the air with an unmistakable sense of belonging. The firelight duels, though informal, became a cherished part of Gryffindor lore. Tales of particularly creative displays were passed down from year to year, and the tradition persisted long after its origins were forgotten. Even decades later, some students claimed to feel the echoes of those duels in the room's warmth, as though the common room itself remembered the joy and bravery of those snowy nights. The Gryffindor common room, vibrant and full of life during the day, often became a quieter, more introspective place as night fell. While most students nestled into their armchairs or headed off to their dormitories, some could never resist the allure of adventure. The castle's ancient halls seemed to hum with a different kind of magic after dark. And for a certain group of Gryffindors, the astronomy tower stood as an irresistible beacon in the starlit night. The astronomy tower, the highest point in Hogwarts, held a reputation for both its breathtaking views and its sense of mystery. By day, it was a place of study where students measured the movements of the heavens and charted celestial phenomena. But by night, it transformed into something otherworldly. Its stone walls bathed in moonlight, and its air filled with the whisper of the wind. For the daring Gryffindors, sneaking to the tower under the cover of darkness became a rite of passage. It wasn't about mischief alone, it was about the thrill of exploring forbidden spaces. The quiet camaraderie of shared secrets, and the unparalleled reward of seeing the stars from such a lofty perch. One particular winter night, with the common room still glowing from the embers of the firelight duels, a group of second years found themselves drawn to the idea of the astronomy tower. The snowstorm that had raged earlier had cleared, leaving the sky clear and brilliant with stars. The journey began with careful steps through the winding staircases and echoing corridors of the castle. The Gryffindor students moved with cautious excitement, their wands casting faint glimmers of light that reflected off the cold stone walls. The castle seemed alive in the quiet, its shifting staircases groaning softly, as if aware of their secret mission. When they reached the tower, the climb itself felt like an achievement. The steep, spiraling stairs seemed endless, each step resonating faintly in the stillness. But at last, they emerged into the open air, where the night unfolded around them like a vast, sparkling tapestry. The view from the astronomy tower was nothing short of magical. Below them, the frozen grounds of Hogwarts glistened under the moonlight. The forbidden forest standing dark and mysterious in the distance. The black lake stretched out like a sheet of polished obsidian, its surface reflecting the constellations above. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby woods. It was not only the view of Hogwarts that captivated them. Above, the sky seemed impossibly vast, scattered with stars so bright they appeared to pulse with life. That night, a meteor shower streaked across the heavens, leaving trails of light that lingered like ribbons before fading. The students, huddled together in awe, watched as the meteors danced across the sky, their breaths visible in the frosty air. For those few moments, time felt suspended. The enormity of the universe stretched out before them, and yet, standing on the tower, they felt connected to something much greater than themselves. The magic of the astronomy tower wasn't only in the celestial display, but also in the shared experience of those who ventured there. Gryffindors, with their fearless hearts, seemed uniquely drawn to such adventures, where the quiet thrill of discovery replaced the louder triumphs of their daytime exploits. Even the castle itself seemed to honor these moments. The wind, though cold, was gentle, and the faint glow of the tower's enchanted lanterns cast a warm light that softened the sharp chill of the night. Hogwarts, ever watchful, seemed to hold its breath, allowing its students this stolen moment of wonder. When the group descended the tower, the night had grown deeper, the castle's shadows longer. Their steps were slower, more thoughtful, as if the grandeur of what they had seen had left them subdued. By the time they returned to the common room, the fire had died down to embers, and the room was steeped in a deep, comforting quiet. Though the details of each midnight visit varied, the astronomy tower remained a favorite destination for Gryffindors drawn to its allure. Tales of its magic were passed down through generations, inspiring new students to follow the stars and discover their own quiet adventures. For Gryffindor, it wasn't only about bravery in battle or heroics. It was also about daring to climb, to seek, and to wonder. The tower, with its endless sky and silent grandeur, became a symbol of that unyielding spirit. The Gryffindor common room was still steeped in the calm of winter's quiet charm. After the thrill of firelight duels and the wonder of midnight adventures, life within the tower returned to its usual rhythm of studies, laughter, and the occasional mischief. But as the days grew colder and scarves became an indispensable part of every student's attire, an unusual problem arose. Scarves, particularly those bearing Gryffindor's red and gold stripes, began to vanish. It started subtly. A scarf left draped over the back of an armchair would be missing the next morning. Another, hastily discarded near the fireplace after a frosty walk across the grounds, disappeared before its owner could retrieve it. At first, no one thought much of it. Hogwarts was a bustling castle where enchanted objects occasionally wandered off, or mischievous students borrowed items without asking. But as the days passed, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Each morning, the Gryffindor common room was abuzz with complaints of missing scarves, and by the end of the week, it seemed nearly half the house was scarfless. The peculiar part was that the missing scarves were never found elsewhere in the castle, neither in the dormitories nor abandoned in some forgotten corridor. They had simply vanished. For the Gryffindors, the mystery quickly turned into a challenge. With their characteristic boldness and curiosity, the students began devising plans to catch the culprit. Some suspected Peeves, the poltergeist, whose love of chaos often found its way into the common room. Others whispered of enchanted mice or mischievous house elves playing pranks. A few even speculated that the castle itself, with its ever-shifting staircases and sentient magic, had decided to claim the scarves for some unknown purpose. One evening, a group of determined Gryffindors decided to take matters into their own hands. They carefully placed a stack of scarves near the fireplace, hoping to lure the thief into revealing themselves. All night, they took turns keeping watch, but the hours passed without incident. By morning, however, the scarves were gone, taken silently and without a trace. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One crisp morning, as a group of students made their way to the Great Hall for breakfast, they spotted something curious in the frosty air. Red and gold threads fluttered from a nearby tree in the courtyard, sparkling faintly with frost. Upon closer inspection, they found not just threads but entire scarves, knotted together and draped across the highest branches. It wasn't long before the culprit revealed itself. A pair of enchanted ravens, likely descendants of pets once kept by students, had made their home in the trees surrounding Gryffindor Tower. The clever birds, drawn to the bright colors of the scarves and the warmth they held from the common room's hearth, had been sneaking through an open window to collect their treasures. The scarves were woven into an elaborate nest, their brilliant hues glowing against the stark winter branches. The students were initially baffled, unsure how to reclaim their scarves without disturbing the ravens. But one particularly resourceful fifth year had an idea. Using a simple warming charm, they enchanted a bundle of old, unused robes to emit heat, leaving the pile at the base of the tree. Within a day, the ravens had abandoned the scarves in favor of their new, cozier nesting material, and the Gryffindor scarves were returned to their rightful owners. The students, however, couldn't bring themselves to dismantle the raven's intricate nest entirely. A few scarves, deemed too frayed to be missed, were left behind as a tribute to the bird's ingenuity. The mystery of the disappearing scarves quickly became a favorite tale within Gryffindor Tower, retold in the warmth of the common room on cold winter nights. It was a story that blended curiosity, courage, and a touch of humor, quintessentially Gryffindor. The ravens themselves became a kind of unofficial mascot, often seen perched near the windows, their beady eyes glinting mischievously as if remembering their clever heist. In the end, the incident reminded the Gryffindors that not all challenges required great heroics to solve. Sometimes, a bit of patience, teamwork, and creative thinking were enough to bring warmth back to their lively tower. The mystery of the disappearing scarves had left the Gryffindor common room brimming with laughter and stories. But as the days grew colder and snow deepened across the castle grounds, a quieter mood settled over the tower. On these winter nights, when the fire's glow painted the walls with a warm amber light, the portraits that adorned the common room seemed to take on a life of their own. Their painted figures moving with an almost reflective grace. The portraits within Gryffindor Tower had watched over countless generations of students, their frames guarding the secrets of years long past. They were more than mere decorations. They were witnesses to history, their subjects endowed with a spark of life through enchantment. While they rarely interacted with the students, their presence was a constant reminder of the house's legacy. And in their own way, they held a deep affection for the bravery and antics of those under their watch. On rare evenings, when the common room grew especially still, the portraits seemed to shift more often, their figures pausing in their painted activities to gaze down upon the students. The fat lady's neighboring portraits, less constrained by their duties than she, were particularly active, their movements a subtle dance of curiosity and contemplation. The Gryffindors had long speculated that the portraits shared memories between their frames, recounting tales of years gone by. It was said that on the quietest nights, the painted figures would gather in one frame or another, whispering of forgotten days when the common room had been filled with the voices of students whose names were now etched into Hogwarts lore. Each portrait held a unique perspective. The knight clad in shimmering armor above the fireplace often shifted to a more comfortable stance, as if recalling the victories and challenges of the house's greatest Quidditch teams. Another portrait, featuring a serene lady with a silver goblet, was said to have witnessed the origins of Gryffindor's peculiar house rivalries, her knowing smile hinting at untold stories. It was during these gatherings that the rooms seemed to carry an air of timelessness. The crackling fire reflected on the golden frames, its light flickering across the painted faces as though reigniting memories buried in the years. One particularly frigid winter evening, a group of students seated by the fire noticed something unusual. The knight above the fireplace, usually stoic, appeared to be gesturing animatedly. His sword raised, not in defense, but in what seemed to be a dramatic flourish. Across the room, a cluster of smaller portraits leaned closer, their painted figures frozen in rapt attention. Though the students could not hear what was being shared, they felt the weight of the moment. It was as though the common room itself was alive with echoes of the past, of the bravery, laughter, and trials that had filled its walls through the centuries. The students, warmed by the fire and this unspoken connection, felt a deeper sense of belonging, as though they were not merely part of Gryffindor, but part of something far greater. The portrait's silent storytelling became a source of comfort during the darker, quieter hours of winter. To the students, it was a reminder that Gryffindor Tower was not just a place of learning and camaraderie, but a living repository of courage and history. The painted figures, though bound to their frames, carried within them the essence of Gryffindor's values, the daring of its founders, the resilience of its alumni, and the unwavering spirit of its present members. Some students began to leave small tokens near the portraits, a red and gold ribbon here, a carefully folded note there, as if to thank the figures for their quiet guardianship. Though the portraits could not speak in return, their subtle shifts and knowing glances seemed to acknowledge the gestures. As the seasons turned and winter slowly gave way to spring, the portraits resumed their quieter routines, their painted figures resuming poses of stillness or returning to their depicted activities. Yet their role as silent watchers and keepers of Gryffindor's history endured, their presence a constant thread in the tapestry of the house's story. For the Gryffindors who paused to observe them, the portraits were more than painted relics. They were a bridge between generations, a reminder of the courage and character that defined their house. And in the quiet flicker of the firelight, their long memory continued, whispering stories of bravery and belonging to all who cared to listen. The Gryffindor Common Room had long been a place where classic tales thrived. But few moments brought the house together like the jubilant nights following a triumphant Quidditch match. The echoes of cheers from the stands often followed the players and supporters back into the tower, igniting a celebration that filled every corner with laughter, pride, and unrestrained energy. On one such evening, after a particularly hard-fought victory against Slytherin, the common room became a beacon of celebration, its walls seemingly pulsing with the excitement of the moment. The game itself had been a spectacle. Fierce winds had howled across the pitch, and the Slytherin team, known for their aggressive tactics, had fought relentlessly to secure the win. Yet Gryffindor's team, driven by determination and a sense of unity, had prevailed. The match ended dramatically, with the Seeker diving through a maze of opposing chasers to seize the golden snitch. By the time the team returned to the common room, their crimson robes damp from the chill and their faces glowing with exhilaration, The room was already alive with celebration. Gryffindors of all years had gathered to honor their team's effort, the roaring fire adding to the electric atmosphere. The common room seemed to transform for such occasions. The fire burned brighter, its flickering light reflecting off the gold accents of the furniture and casting dynamic patterns across the walls. Red and gold banners appeared as if by magic, draped over chairs and hanging from the rafters. A stack of enchanted lanterns floated near the ceiling, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. Students huddled together on the plush armchairs, recounting every moment of the match with exaggerated gestures and gleeful enthusiasm. Others gathered near the fireplace, where someone had conjured an illusion of the snitch, its golden wings shimmering as it darted in playful circles. Even the fat lady in her portrait seemed to share in the revelry, clapping her hands in approval from her painted frame. Amid the lively chaos, a shy first year sat quietly in a corner, their gaze flickering between the crackling fire and the jubilant crowd. Though they had cheered loudly during the match, the overwhelming energy of the celebration now made them hesitant to join in. Yet Gryffindor was a house that thrived on inclusivity and camaraderie, and it wasn't long before one of the older students noticed their quiet demeanor. With an encouraging smile, the older student handed them a scarf, embroidered with Gryffindor's lion crest, and guided them toward the fireplace, where a group of first years were watching the enchanted snitch's mesmerizing flight. The shy students soon found themselves swept into the fold, their initial hesitation melting away as laughter and excitement enveloped them. The Gryffindor Quidditch team, though exhausted from the game, took their rightful place as the center of the celebration. Each player was cheered enthusiastically as they recounted the challenges they had faced on the pitch, their voices rising above the general clamor. The keeper, who had blocked a critical goal near the match's end, was showered with admiration, while the beaters' synchronized tactics were celebrated as masterful. Yet it was not only the players who were honored. Gryffindor's sense of unity extended to all its members and every student, regardless of their involvement in the match, felt pride in their house's success. The celebration became less about the victory itself and more about the shared spirit that defined Gryffindor, one of resilience, courage, and unyielding support for one another. As the night wore on, the common room began to quiet. The enchanted snitch settled near the mantel, its glow dimming as if it too were ready to rest. The fire burned lower, casting softer shadows across the room. Students drifted off to their dormitories, their voices fading into murmurs as the day's excitement gave way to drowsy contentment. For the shy first year, who had now fallen asleep in one of the armchairs, the night had been transformative. The warmth of the common room, both literal and figurative, had given them a newfound sense of belonging. The roaring Quidditch nights became part of the lore of Gryffindor Tower, cherished not only for the victories they celebrated, but for the bonds they strengthened. The common room, with its ever-present firelight and timeless energy, stood as the heart of the house. A place where bravery wasn't always about grand acts, but sometimes about finding joy and connection in the simplest moments. As the embers of a roaring Quidditch night faded into gentle warmth, the Gryffindor common room settled into a tranquil rhythm once again. The hearth, ever constant at the heart of the room, remained aglow. Its flames danced languidly, casting soft light on the scarlet drapes and golden accents that adorned the walls. Though often seen as merely a source of comfort, the fireplace was far more than it appeared. For centuries, it had quietly harbored its own subtle magic, a presence as enduring as Gryffindor Tower itself. The hearth in Gryffindor Tower had burned continuously since the founding of the house. It was said that Godric Gryffindor himself had enchanted it, ensuring that its flames would never waver. No matter how fierce the winds that swept the castle's towers, or how bitter the cold of the Scottish winters. But the fire's true enchantment was more profound than simply resisting the elements. The warmth it provided seemed to permeate not only the room, but also the spirits of those gathered around it, fostering an atmosphere of courage and camaraderie. Over the years, students often noticed how the flames seemed to respond to the energy of the room. During the exuberant celebrations of a Quidditch victory, the fire would roar with an intensity that mirrored the excitement. On quieter nights, it softened, its glow diffused like a comforting embrace. What made the hearth truly remarkable, however, was its ability to remember. It was said that the fire retained echoes of the countless stories, conversations, and moments that had unfolded before it. Though it could not speak, the shifting shapes within the flames often seemed to reflect the mood of those nearby, as if it carried the essence of all who had called Gryffindor Tower home. Generations of students had noticed peculiar patterns in the firelight, images that appeared fleetingly in the blaze, almost too subtle to catch. Some saw lions prowling in the embers, their forms rippling in and out of existence. Others swore they glimpsed the outline of a Quidditch player mid-dive, their broom trailing sparks. It was as though the hearth wove the spirit of Gryffindor into its flames, a tapestry of memories flickering just beyond reach. The hearth's enchantment was not ostentatious. Rather, it worked in quiet, unassuming ways. Students who lingered by the fire often found their thoughts clearing, their anxieties soothed by its steady warmth. During late-night study sessions, its glow seemed to sharpen focus, while during moments of homesickness, it brought a comforting sense of belonging. It was a place where first years whispered about their classes, their voices tentative but eager. Older students often gravitated there to reflect on their time at Hogwarts, drawn by the subtle pull of the hearth's magic. Even those who preferred solitude found solace in its presence, as though the fire offered unspoken understanding. Occasionally, the hearth seemed to whisper its secrets. On the stillest nights, students claimed to hear faint crackles that sounded like distant voices or laughter. These were said to be echoes of Gryffindor's long past, their memories lingering in the flames. A few particularly inquisitive students had attempted to unravel the source of this phenomenon. Studying ancient texts in the library and consulting the fat lady, who was always keen to share tidbits of Gryffindor lore. While no definitive answers were ever found, it was widely believed that the enchantment was tied to Godric Gryffindor's belief in unity. The hearth's magic was a reflection of the house's spirit, a quiet reminder that the bonds formed within its walls would endure, even as generations came and went. As the seasons turned and new students arrived to make Gryffindor Tower their home, the hearth continued to burn, a steady beacon in the ever-changing life of the castle. Its flames bore witness to the bravery, mischief, and kindness that defined the house, offering warmth and light to all who gathered, past or future. To the Gryffindors who passed through its glow, the hearth was more than a simple fireplace. It was a steadfast companion, a keeper of their joys and struggles, and a quiet reminder that even in the coldest winters, the fire of courage would never fade. As the enchanted hearth continued to cast its timeless warmth across the Gryffindor common room, the ever-watchful presence of the fat lady remained an unchanging part of daily life. Her portrait, guarding the entrance to the tower, had weathered centuries of laughter, whispered secrets, and midnight escapades. Though her role seemed simple, granting entry to those with the correct password, the fat lady's history ran deeper than most students realized. Hidden within her painted frame was a forgotten secret, one tied to the founding days of Hogwarts itself. The fat lady's portrait, hung with pride on the 7th floor, was more than just a magical gatekeeper. Godric Gryffindor had chosen her not merely for her vigilance, but for her vibrant personality, which mirrored the values of the house she protected. She had been a friend to Gryffindor himself, a figure of unwavering loyalty and resilience, who had once walked the castle's halls. Enchanting her likeness to guard the common room was both an honor and a practical decision, ensuring that only those worthy of Gryffindor's legacy could enter. Through the centuries, the fat lady had fulfilled her role with flair, her wit and charm becoming as much a part of Gryffindor Tower as its red and gold banners. Yet within her playful banter and occasional frustration with forgotten passwords lay a deeper purpose, one that had been quietly obscured by time. While most students saw only the outward personality of the fat lady, some noticed peculiar moments when she seemed more contemplative. Occasionally, she gazed not at the students clamoring for entry, but at the distant expanse of the corridor behind them, her painted features tinged with something akin to wistfulness. These fleeting expressions went unnoticed by most, dismissed as quirks of her enchantment, but those who observed carefully sensed there was more to her story. It was said among the castle's oldest portraits that the Fat Lady had been entrusted with a task beyond her guardianship, a responsibility tied to the very heart of Gryffindor Tower. The details of this charge had faded into legend, lost amid centuries of shifting castle lore, but traces of the truth lingered. One snowy evening, as the common room basked in the glow of its ever-burning hearth, a group of 7th years gathered to recount tales of Hogwarts' hidden mysteries. Among the stories was a curious anecdote about the Fat Lady's frame. Beneath its ornate gold border, faint etchings were said to be visible, markings that seemed to form a cryptic pattern, like a forgotten inscription. Intrigued, a particularly curious student ventured to examine the portrait more closely. Brushing aside the usual warnings of disturbing the Fat Lady, they discovered a series of runes carved into the wood, nearly imperceptible under layers of age-old varnish. The runes, though weathered, glimmered faintly under the flickering light of a wand, suggesting that they carried enchantments as ancient as the portrait itself. The discovery prompted a renewed interest in the Fat Lady's history. Consulting dusty tomes in the library and seeking insights from other portraits, the students pieced together fragments of her forgotten purpose. The runes, it seemed, were tied to a powerful protective spell cast by Godric Gryffindor during the founding of the house. This spell was meant to safeguard not only the common room, but the unity of the Gryffindor house itself. It was believed that the Fat Lady's presence acted as more than a gatekeeper. Her enchantment helped reinforce the bonds among Gryffindor students, subtly encouraging courage, loyalty, and trust. The runes beneath her frame were a failsafe, designed to activate in times of great peril, ensuring that the spirit of Gryffindor would endure even in the darkest hours. Though the Fat Lady herself never acknowledged the rediscovery of her secret, her demeanor seemed to soften in the days that followed, as though she were pleased that a piece of her forgotten history had been remembered. The students, in turn, grew to appreciate her role even more, understanding that her presence was not just practical but deeply symbolic. The runes remained a quiet testament to the enduring magic of Gryffindor Tower, their purpose no longer forgotten but cherished as part of the house's legacy. And though the Fat Lady continued to grumble about passwords and late-night interruptions, there was an unmistakable pride in the way she carried herself, a reminder that even the smallest details within Hogwarts held stories worth uncovering. And so, we come to the end of our journey through the Gryffindor Common Room, where tales of bravery, camaraderie, and magic intertwine to create a home unlike any other. These stories, woven into the very walls of the tower, remind us of the courage that defines Gryffindor and the warmth that unites its students. As the fire in the hearth burns low and the shadows grow softer, the echoes of these moments linger, inviting all who hear them to carry their light into dreams. The common room, with its timeless glow and enduring spirit, will always remain a sanctuary for those who seek its warmth, a beacon of bravery across the years. Let the peace of this magical place guide you into restful sleep. Good night, my dear wizards and witches, and may your dreams be as bold and beautiful as the stories of Gryffindor Tower.